Hello guys, welcome to my latest video. I hope everybody's okay. I'm doing a bit better. I'm still really tired and sort of recovering, but I thought I'd do this video about my erasers for you. For those of you waiting for me to do you in a shout out video, I promise you, you're all on a list, and it is a big list, and you will all be on a shout out video in the near future, so don't worry about that. I will include everybody in time. Without further ado then, thanks for all the well wishes again, and I hope you enjoy this video. Right then, to start with, I was just going to do a very basic video on all the erasers that I use. As you can see here, I've got a different selection to start with. There will be a lot more further along in the video. Uh, it is a bit longer than I anticipated, but it's the only way I could show the way that I use the things that I use. So I hope it's not too overdrawn for you guys. I will do a more in-depth video in the future because I want to start my Patreon next year. So I'm going to be doing a lot more tutorials then. But for now, yeah, this is my basic Tombow eraser that I use. These are the refills that you can see me getting out of the tube. And this is the basic Tombow. Some people say Tombow, some people say Tombow. This is the basic one. Basically, you just press the top in and you can slide your refill in or out. So press the top and it can go in and out, and it's such an easy thing to use. And I like to use this rubber for detailing drawings, especially hair on portraits and fur on animal drawings. It's best to keep the nib as small as you can because they are pretty frail and they can break easily. I've got 3 of these normal Tombow erasers. As you can see, this one's dirty. I've used this one. The reason I've got 3 is because I like to have one at a normal size, and I like to cut the other 2 at different angles. And I'll give you an example here. Just as a quick warning, if you are using a craft knife, please be careful. And if you're under 16, then please be extra careful and maybe get your parent to do it for you if you're very young, because they can be very dangerous and very sharp. There you can see I've just cut the dirty bit off that nib that was used, so it's all nice and clean to use now. What I was talking about with different angles, I'll show you now with this next one. What I like to do is I like to cut the nib at an angle so it gives the eraser a point. You can do it in all sorts of different ways. You can have points, you can have like a sort of nib on it, you can square it out, you can, have basically a really thin point if you want. But the thinner you go, the harder it is to use the eraser when you've got a lot of graphite on the page, which I'll show you in a little while. But it is very handy to be able to cut this to a point, and this is the reason I use a metal ruler as well to cut on, because then it's not going to cut any surface that you're drawing on, or any paper or any table that you're using. It's a lot safer as well. Yeah, as I was saying, the reason I like to cut an angle or to cut a point is because when you're drawing fur or hair or even fine details, it really can come in handy, and you can get some really good detail with these rubbers. But as I was saying, that the more point that you cut on it, the more frail the rubber becomes. So if it's too thin a point, it's just going to bend on the paper, and it's not going to make an indent into the graphite. Now this, I was actually sent by mistake. When I ordered some of the smaller refills, they sent me these big refills by mistake. And to my joy, I was in an art shop once and I actually found the Tombow eraser that fits these, so I bought that. So, I haven't wasted anything. Um, these work on the same principle. You pull them in, pull them out by pressing the top in. As you can see on this one, I pulled it out and the bit of plastic that holds it has got stuck. All you do then, push the eraser back in and it should reinsert itself onto the plastic sheath. So that was quite good that it did that, because a lot of people panic when that happens and think, oh no, my rubber's ruined, but it's not. You just shove the eraser back in and it comes out so easily. With this thicker one, it just works on the same principle. You can have it square and flat for bigger areas, or you can cut it to an angle. These are really nice to have at an angle actually, because they're quite thick, and so when you cut it at an angle, the point is quite thick, and so you can get thicker lines, if you like, especially if you're drawing fur on an animal and you've made a mistake. You can really like erase a big block with this, and it makes it a lot easier. Right, this is some graphite that I'll just laid down so I can show you some stuff. As you can see, I've done a little smudge on the HB one on the left, so I'll explain that later with another eraser. But for now, this is the normal Tombow eraser that I'm using, the thin one, the circular thin one. And basically, you can see you can just lift graphite out. You can just basically draw a line. So if you're drawing hair or fur, you can create a nice line quite easily, and you can go back in with your pencil and draw in between these lines to darken it out again, and then you can use the eraser again. It's pretty much like coloured pencils in a way, building layers, and it's pretty useful. On the 2B, you can still see it's pretty effective, and see I've got a bit of dirt on the end of it there, a bit of graphite, sorry, so you can just pull that bit off, pull the nib off, and it gets dirty. Works on the F as well. Sometimes with the darker graphite you have to be a bit stronger, like this is a 7B, so this is a really dark graphite, and as you can see it's having a bit of difficulty, the thin Tombow eraser, it's having difficulty lifting the graphite, but you still can if you go back and forth, if you just persevere. Obviously if I was doing a real drawing now, or a portrait or something, or drawing an animal, then I'd be taking my time a lot more, being a lot more careful. There I've just, because the 7B put a lot of graphite on the end of that eraser then, so I've just cut the nib off to clean it again. And obviously on a 3H it's going to breeze through it. So yeah, you can see there that it's quite easy to lift off graphite with these erasers, they're quite useful. As you can see, I'm using a plastic sheet as well. People often ask me about that, but I like to use a plastic sheet because it stops your drawing getting dirty, and you can still see your drawing underneath the plastic as a reference. Right, now I'm trying to go in with the one with that I've cut the angle on, with a thinner tip, to try and make a thinner mark. It's not a very good example of this actually, because I think I cut it a bit too thin myself, so as I'm going in now I'm pressing down and it's basically pressing out the point, so it's making the eraser flat again. Sometimes you really need a light touch with these erasers. Notice that I've just pointed to that smudge there. I'll explain that in a moment when I'm going in one of the other erasers. One of the erasers is very useful for getting rid of dirt and smudges off your drawings. But this is the thicker Tombow eraser now, and as you can see this does a lot thicker lines, and that's with the angle. But you can use the angle that I've cut in this to do a medium to thick line, but then you can use it flat if you want to do a wider line, which I'll show you in a minute. See, again on the 7B, even with this thicker Tombow eraser, even with the stronger one, the square one, the thick one, it's still tough to get rid of a darker graphite, like a 5B, a 6B, a 7 or an 8B. More graphite to use, so it's harder to get it off, I suppose. There again, I'm cutting it again. 1 to clean it, and 2 to get a different sort of angle. And as you can see, it breezes through the 3H's. The 3H's, your HB's, your 2B's, your 3B's, your F, all the H pencils. The Tombow eraser is amazing to work with. With the 6, 7 and 8B's you might need a bit of a stronger eraser if you've made a mistake. If you can see at the bottom of the 7B there, I've purposely put a line at the bottom out, which I'll talk about in a minute. That's for when you've really made a mistake with a really dark pencil, how to remove it, or try to anyway. This is a kneaded eraser. I used to hate these things, and I used to think, what's the point to them? But now I swear by them. These are the things that I use to clean up the edges of my drawings. As you can see there, I'd obviously be more careful with a proper drawing, but you saw the paper come up there because I wasn't holding it down properly. You have to be careful when you're doing that because you can crease the corners of your drawing. Remember that mark I spoke about earlier? So they're an absolute godsend, kneaded erasers. There's times, even when I'm using a plastic, you can't avoid getting smudges and graphite onto your drawing. and these things are absolutely amazing, and you can use them time and time again and just roll them up and knead them, and it gets rid of the graphite inside, and somehow it's just clean again, and you can use them for quite a while. As you can see, it just gets rid of that corner so easily, the whole of the graphite off that. Right, that little bit on the 7B I was talking about. You can use the kneaded eraser initially to try and get rid of it, and it does a pretty good job, but you can go in with a thicker eraser afterwards, like this, to try and remove it completely. It might not always completely remove it, but it will get most of the job done, and then you can go in over again and draw on top of it. You'll be able to see it. Excuse me, sorry, my voice feels like it's going. Yeah, so that was a kneaded eraser, and I always keep a box of normal erasers that I use. I've got a box with all bits and old bits in, as you can see there, and these are invaluable if you've got a really dark stain and a black stain, and it can get rid of it quite easily. You can see how dirty they are because I've done that in the past with them. These are not a really good example what I'm showing you now because they're quite old, and I've had them quite a while, so I really should start renewing really. Excuse me again. But they still do the job, they still get rid of most of the dark graphite. As you can see, it's still pretty dark, but you can go in with other erasers and maybe the kneaded eraser and try and get it down again. You can draw over it. Obviously sometimes you will make a mistake that is just too much of a mistake and you can't so no eraser is going to do that job, so you just have to basically start again. This is a wax eraser, which I don't really like them, but again, if you want to move a lot of graphite, then this will do the job. As you can see, it picks it up onto the eraser. Look, you can see the graphite on the corner there. You have to be really careful with this eraser though, because they're quite rough and quite coarse, and if you're using a very light paper, it can rip the paper. That's why I tend to use a heavy gram paper if I can. One, because it's got a better tooth to hold the graphite, and two, you're not going to rip it so easily. Now this is a Faber-Castell dust-free eraser, and it's not even open yet, so it's almost like an unboxing. Let's call it an unwrapping if you like. There's something that's so lovely about this eraser, it makes me feel like I want to eat it, like chewing gum or something. But if you're an artist and you like buying new stuff, then you'll know exactly what I mean. It just feels so great having a new thing like that and opening it up. But again, see, you can go in after the wax eraser and finish the job off, and as you can see, this dust-free eraser is pretty good. I'm actually completing the job now and taking away all of the graphite from the 3H. It's so light now you can hardly see it, so you could go in on that and work again. So pretty good. This also removes smudges and marks as well, but like I said, the kneaded eraser is the king of that for me. It's always nice to have one of these dust-free erasers and keep it new and keep it handy and keep the end cut clean, because they're always nice to have and go in clean. Because some erasers, if you let them get too dirty or you don't snip the ends off, then you're going to go in and smudge your work anyway, so that's another problem you can have. So it's all about knowing what you like to use and what's the best for you. There's no concrete way of doing it, it's just practice and testing things out and seeing what you find best. Here I'm going in with Tortillon and just blending out some of that HB. You'll see why in a minute. Just a quick example of how you can use the Tombow eraser for hair and fur. I will stress that with the Tombow eraser as well, especially when it's got its normal point, it's really great if you're drawing a portrait, especially with darker skin, excuse me. You can really pinpoint some of the spots and put in some of the little highlights, and then draw around that highlight to give the impression of an indent in the skin, or a pimple, or a pockmark, or a mole. And they're really invaluable for that. They're really good with that, because you can either draw the mole first and then put the highlight in, but I like to draw the actual highlight and then draw the pimple around it, and it really gives it a really good, nice effect. As you can see with this, I'm just going in and drawing some thin lines through there, and you can see that that's a good way of doing hair. I'm going to block it back in now. A good thing that you can do with the Tombow eraser as well when you're drawing hair, it's always best, as most of you probably know, it's always best to draw hair in blocks. Don't try and draw the whole hair at once. Don't try and draw strings of hair or draw every single piece of hair. It just won't work for you. It's best to see the hair in blocks, almost like sort of spaghetti sort of shapes, or like wool even. And it's best to see that shape and to draw it in. And like, I'll just give a quick example here. This is obviously a lot quicker than I would normally do it. And this is just a really rough example, but it gives you the general idea. You can draw, like I'm drawing some hair strands in here, but as you can see, I'm sort of doing that sort of oval shape. And then you can go in between these lines with your Tombow eraser, and it gives that impression of a lighter hair or a highlight. While I was talking about doing pimples and pock marks, what's also great is when you're doing hair. For example, let's use Morgan Freeman as an example. If you're doing his hair and his beard, he's got a lot of white hair. So the Tombow eraser is absolutely brilliant for that. You can start off like I have here with a shape. You can go dark, and then you can go in and draw some highlights in there, and then you can go back in with a pencil again. You can go in with a medium lead or a HB or a 2B and draw some medium lines in there, and you can use a 4B, 3B or 4B to do the darker bits where the hair meets, and then use the Tombow for the highlights. Anyway, moving on to another eraser that I use. This is the Derwent battery operated eraser. I was so chuffed when I got this because I was paying my parents a visit in England. I don't know whether a lot of you know, but I live in Holland, the Netherlands. But when I was in England, I went into a craft shop with my mother, just a normal everyday shop, not really an art shop. It sold plants and furniture and stuff. But they'd actually got this for £4.99, which is about €6 or $6. Works on the same principle as the Tombow, but obviously it's electronic or battery operated. You get these refills with it when you buy it, and they're pretty cool because it's so easy to fit, and that you can also cut them at an angle, the same as the Tombow ones. So what I do, I keep one cut at an angle again, and one normal. So then I've got the normal one to cut. I've got the normal one to erase sections of drawings that I've done wrong, or if I want a thicker line to erase. And then I've got the angled one to go in with a thinner line. And with this, you can, again, it's a bit thicker than the Tombow one, so you can create so many different angles with it, and go in so many different ways. But with the normal working version, I like to use it on coloured pencil mainly, but you can use it on pencil, as I'll demonstrate here once I sort myself out. Yeah, it's best to, you've got the button on the top, it's best to just press it and then you sort of let it kiss the paper. Don't press it into the paper unless you want to use a big line like I've just done there. If you want to get rid of a load like that, then you can press harder. But if you want thin lines, like if you're doing hair again, then just caress the paper. Now, for coloured pencil, this is brilliant. There's a myth that you can't erase coloured pencil, and once you make a mistake, you've had it. That's it, you have to start again. That's utter rubbish. As you can see here, it completely removes coloured pencil quite easily. Obviously, if you press too hard on the paper, then it's not going to remove it. But if you use the coloured pencils like you're supposed to, with light strokes and build up layers, then there's no reason why this eraser won't get rid of coloured pencil. So yeah, this is great. One bit of advice I'd give you for this rubber as well. As you can see there, I've put the pointed one in now. When you press the button, you can see the point on the rotation. But one piece of advice I'd give for this piece of equipment is to regularly change the batteries. Once it starts to lose a bit of power, then you're going to struggle to erase things because it won't work so well. Especially when you're doing light lines and you're trying to caress the paper, it won't take the graphite off so well. because it'll be struggling because it'll have no power and it won't be rotating as fast. As soon as you replace the batteries, which I did for this video, then you can't half tell the difference. It moves a lot quicker and it removes the graphite so much easier. It's so cool in that way. If you remember, I did this drawing as a tutorial once on coloured pencils, and I'm now going to use it to show you again, to make it definite that you can get rid of coloured pencil. You can erase coloured pencil. So there's a lot of people out there who are so scared to make a mistake at colour pencils that they don't end up using them because they think, what's the point? I could start a drawing and I could work for 9 hours and then make a mistake and then I can't erase it, so I have to start again, and that's just too painstaking. But it is an absolute myth. I mean, look, you can see here I'm just making highlights in the hair. It's so easy to do. And then people will say, yeah, but what if you've gone really dark on one part of the drawing? Would it be impossible to move it? And so you definitely have to start again. No, not true. I'll show you here. Look how dark that is. That's the darkest brown that you can get in polychromos pencils. Can't remember which pencil it is, but it's one of the dark browns. But I'm going in and I'm just lifting it off the paper so easily. I mean, maybe it's not perfectly white underneath now, but it does enable you to work again on it. So you can see that line there. So yes, you can erase coloured pencils, so it's a complete myth. It's also good to use on this grey paper that I use, this grayscale paper, the Strathmore. I use that a lot for my animal portraits, and this eraser works superbly on that as well. In fact, it probably works better on that than it does on the white paper. But just to show you here, even for graphite, even for pencil, you can just remove anything that you've put down basically. And it works pretty well on the darker graphite as well, 7Bs, 6, 7Bs. So yeah, that's the Derwent battery operated eraser, and like I said, I was so pleased that I got this for £4.99, you know, £5. So you know, €6, $6. It's a bargain, it really is. Especially if, like me, in the future I want to do more coloured pencil work, and this is absolutely amazing for that. It sort of gives you a bit more confidence that you can erase mistakes and that you're not going to get stuck. And the last thing I use for erasing sometimes, very occasionally, this is brisket paper, which I initially bought for my airbrush. Incidentally, I will be using my airbrush for backgrounds a lot more in the future, especially when I do some wildlife work and some animal work. It's a bit of a bugbear of mine that I don't use my airbrush enough. I just haven't got the time to practice it, and along with all this drawing as well and making the videos. But I will be using it for backgrounds. Anyway, onto the brisket paper. I've cut a small piece out here, as you can see, and I've prepared another piece of graphite. You can just peel the backing off, it's quite easy. What I like to do, instead of peeling it all off and being left with a sticky piece of paper all over your hands, just bend it back a bit, and then you can hold it by that plastic backing, and then just place it onto your drawing. Now, I'm using a mechanical pencil there because it's really pointed and sharp, just to draw a few lines on it really lightly, just to show you the effect in action. Hopefully this will pick it up, because with the light that I'm using, might be quite hard to pick up. Yes, it is, but you can see the graphite's lifted, and if I zoom in a little bit, you can see there. So you could, like, if you're drawing again Morgan Freeman and you want to put some little highlights into his hair, some white hairs, or into his beard, this is absolutely great for that, because you can just go in like this and just draw. Say you're working on Morgan's beard now, or anybody's beard for that matter, they've got white or grey hairs. You can just do these little marks and these little lines, and all being well, it should work out quite well. It's just a matter again of practice and finding out how to do it. Obviously, again, I would take a lot more care doing this if I was doing an actual drawing, but like I said, I want to do more videos and tutorials in the future, and I'll probably go into each one of these erasers in more depth, and I'll probably actually do a drawing where I'm showing you using each one on the actual portrait, so you can see me taking my time and being more careful. So basically, that's the erasers that I use. I'm sorry that the video was so long. I hope that you've all enjoyed this, and I hope you maybe learnt something from it. It hasn't been so much of a tutorial really. It's been more of a me showing you the tools that I do use and just okay maybe how I use them in a small way. But I will do one a more in-depth one in future for each one, like I said. I'd just like to say thank you to everybody who watches my videos. Thank you to everybody who's subscribed. Thank you to all the people that comment and talk to me in the sections. We've got a great little art community building. I will be doing some more shout outs in the near future, so don't worry, everybody's on the list. There's no particular order, there's no favouritism. Thanks again for watching, and I'll speak to you all soon. Ta-ra.